Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to please help Nick Barker's recovery by donating to his GoFundMe page. The link will be in the description. Merry Christmas and enjoy the episode. Welcome everyone to another episode of Black Metal Legends, and today we have an extremely special guest, someone who I've been listening to since I first started getting into extreme music, and that is Nick Barker, one of the most influential, iconic, and coolest drummers that there was in black metal and extreme music. And of course, today is the Christmas special, so everyone, Merry Christmas. And I wanted to do something really special. So Nick, thank you so much for your time and being a part of Black Metal Legends.
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks for bigging me up so much.
No, it's cool because the thing is, I want to go a bit into like my personal history into getting into extreme music, because one of the first bands I got into back in the day, when I was like 14, just about turning 15, was of course Dimmu Borgir and the puritanical and death cult album eras.
Yeah,
And then in that time, a song that really just I absolutely loved was Kings of the Carnival creation.
cool. It's a good song.
Oh, it's one of my favorites, and one of the reasons why I love this song so much is because it's a real there's a real progression to the song. There's a real journey to it, and this is where it's like the few questions that I wanted to ask you about that song specifically, as well, because I want to talk about the first of all is the kind of the machine gun kind of riff, the dun 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 dun, brrm, yeah. So first of all, who was it that created the riff? Was it Selenos?
No, to say how it happened, Mustis was playing around with that. The keyboard intro
Yeah.
at the beginning. He was playing around with that, and we were just noodling in the jam room. And all of a sudden, I put the kick pattern to it. Drun, 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 drun. And I said to Galder and the cylinder, hey, try syncopating that with the guitar, and it just came together. And in the jam room, when you're working on something, when something clicks because you just look at each other and go, "Fuck yeah, yeah, that's it." And we captured this piece, and we just kept playing around with it. And then I think it was Vortex was the one that told me to flip the beat, where I do the flip halfway through.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, if I remember right, I've got the mini discs. I used to record all of the rehearsal tapes on mini disc, and then listen back to them, and pick faults, and maybe I'll do that, and I'm not so happy with that, and that's for my own personal, whatever. But that the song Kings of Carnival Creation, I remember we sat on a bunch of riffs for ages, and we just couldn't seem to. It just wasn't gelling right where we wanted it to go. And then all of a sudden, when we did the machine gun pattern, and then everything just clicked. And then the middle part, where it breaks down with Vortex's vocals, that was my idea from the beat with the snare down on the double kicks. Da, 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 da. Then I had the idea of like break it right down. And it just we just knew we really captured something magical at that point. And hearing it in the studio for the first time, with the Vortex's vocals, it gave me chills. It really did. It was like, even to this day, I agree with you. It's an amazing song, and I think it captures everything that's special about Dimmu Borgir in that one song right there. It's got everything.
Yeah, I would agree, because I would say that's the definitive Dimmu Borgir song.
But yeah, I'd say so too. That and Progenies.
Yeah, Progenies is a wicked one as well, because I was looking on Metal Archives, and it said that the songwriter was Mustis. So did he compose everything, or was he like the main guy who presented most of the ideas for Progenies?
Well, yeah. Project is he wrote all of the keyboard parts, and then a conductor for the orchestra. He actually broke it down into segments so he could conduct it in an orchestral way. But it was Mustache that came up with as far as I remember.
Cool. And one thing I wanted to bring up is I think I could be wrong, but I think you're one of the first people to incorporate that um, syncopation between the kicks and the guitars in a rhythmic sense in
Yeah,
in black metal. And where did that idea kind of come from? Was it like from your like Pantera influences
it
and
was more of a Duke Ellington thing.
oh, I see. Okay, yeah, yeah.
If you listen to Dark Angel and a lot of the work he did on the Death albums, he does a lot of like really cool like quadruple pattern kick patterns. And yeah, I'm very heavily influenced by Gene Hoglan, and Neil Peart, and so yeah, for me, my inspiration came from Gene, but also just to give you a quick heads up too, Puritania was written the same way.
Oh, cool.
Mustas was playing around with the riff, and I just played the and then I said syncopate it with the guitars, and we wrote Puritania in like 10 minutes. No, it just came together like that. So
Cool. And was that a common theme with the majority of the songwriting process for the Puritanical album? Was it just you guys jam room having an idea, throwing in all these riffs and just creating as a group?
um, some of it, yeah. I mean, the guys like Shagrath and Selenos and the other guys, they had ideas that they work out at home, and they bring the ideas to the jam room, and sometimes we'd make demos, and we just, the songs that we actually demoed, they just naturally evolved as we played them more and more. Like I would suggest things. See, I can't write riffs, but if you give me a bunch of riffs, I can make songs. So maybe I'm on the spectrum or whatever. I don't know, but I see riffs like jigsaw pieces in my mind, and I can just take them, pick them out, and join them together and make an arrangement. That's how I see music. I can't write riffs. I wish I could, but if you give me a bunch of riffs, I can turn them into song arrangements. Very easy. It's you know.
Cool.
Um, so the thing with me is, like, I like to jam stuff out, and I'll play like a bunch of different beats over the same riff. Some of it's dog shit. It's like trial and error. Like if something works because you can tell by everyone's body language. And I just like, if I have a strong idea, I like to try it out. If it doesn't work, then we move on. I'm not precious. I want to when I'm involved in a band and songwriting, um, I want to write for the song, not for me. I don't want to showboat or, I want to I want to make sure everything's good for the song and everything shines where it needs to shine. Knowing when to pull back and then when to come forward. You know,
Yeah, because that's one thing I wanted to dive into and elaborate a lot more on is what you think about when you hear a riff.
I listen to the riffs and try and see groove is so important, and a lot of young drummers don't really understand how important groove is. They're all about speed and showboating, and look at me, I'm the fastest. It's like that's great, but a blast at the end of the day, a blast beat is a blast beat. It's like some can play it faster than others, but it's still a blast beat. And it's like been done so many times now. It's not innovative anymore. It's not original. So it's the originality and the flair comes from the groove and the little intricacies and nuances that you put in. And for me, I tend to I listen to the riffs. Do I follow the keyboard riff on this, or do I go with the guitars? you know, and kind of you work it out that way. But it's always important to listen to where the riff's going, the melodic structure of it, and if there's any accents or I try to accent key parts of the riffs, which kind of create like a groove, I guess.
Yeah, because that's one of the key themes that I wanted to speak to you about is within your playing is that there's always a groove to it. Sometimes even the blast beat sections as well, because of course you do the blast and then you finish it with this insanely cool fill, or there's like crashes and stuff in between. And when when did you figure out and kind of decide to incorporate groove into your playing? And what was there any like catalyst to make you think like, oh, this is this is why groove is important?
Well, for me, the modern drummers will probably frown upon this, but one of my favorite drummers of all time is Phil Rudd from AC/DC. Now, if you want to talk about groove, now a lot of modern drummers, like young kids, probably go, "Oh, AC/DC, that's fucking bullshit." Anybody can play that. No, you can't, because you can't play it like Phil Rudd. He has a certain swing, and that's same with Alex Van Halen.
Mm.
Same with Phil Collins. They how they play the drums their characteristics. You know, they have their own groove. They have their own patterns. I can tell straight away just by listening to a song that's Phil Collins, or that's Alex Van Halen, or that's Phil Rudd, just because of the groove that they incorporate into their playing. And to get that to get that groove on a 4/4 rock beat like Phil Rudd, it's very special. Anybody can play it, but you can't play it like him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, because I remember watching a video. I believe it was one of Michael Jackson's drummers, and they were talking about Billie Jean. You know,
Yeah,
but the way you've got to play that is you've just got to be so kind of like on it that it's got to
yeah,
make people dance.
yeah. Again, it's the groove.
Yeah,
Anybody can play that beat, but you've got to play it with feeling
yeah,
and conviction to get that groove and to get that. Oh, it's almost like they're on the backbeat almost.
yeah. I guess it's one of those distinguish ways to distinguish between making a sound and making music in a way. Why drums to start off with? What made you want to start playing drums in the beginning, and what influenced you to start learning?
Because they're like me, they're big and loud. I was oh, I guess it comes down to I originally started on guitar when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My stepfather, who was an absolute tyrant, he was a guitarist, and he tried forcing the guitar on me, and it wasn't me. I just couldn't get my head around it. But here's the thing: I love guitarists. Today, I'm all about guitarists more than drummers. It takes it takes a lot to impress me with drums, but like I love watching guitars. The art form, it blows me away. And those guitarists, they're the ones that I feed off. When it comes to me creating what I do. So I've got a lot of respect for guitarists, big time. Um, but I mean, my passion for drums started when I was probably about 7 years old, and remember seeing bands on Top of the Pops. And I remember the first time I saw Iron Maiden on Top of the Pops, and just seeing all the lights and the leather and the studs and the big drum kit, Eddie and the guitars. It blew. I was like, I want to do that. That was my calling. And then later on, when I saw Nico McBrain's drum kit for the first time, it was like, holy shit, and like the big long fills he does. And same with Alex Van Halen, with the four kick drums. It's like, whoa, it's like, yeah, it's being a drummer is kind of like you're making a statement.
Do you also believe that the quality of the band lies within the quality of the drummer?
To a degree, yeah. But it's a band, so everybody's got to pull their weight, really. You know, the old saying like a band is only as good as their drummer. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, because there's a few bands that have shit drummers that but I actually like. One being one of the biggest metal bands in the world that we all know.
Mm. Gotcha, gotcha. And then what was the first band that got you into more extreme metal, like death and black metal?
Well, it was a natural evolution, really. Like I started out like when I was like seven or eight, listening to AC/DC and Iron Maiden and Motorhead, Saxon, Van Halen, that kind of stuff. And then as I became a teenager, the rebellion kicked in, puberty, and I just got more and more invested into this music. And that's when I discovered the likes of like Slayer and Metallica and Exodus. And then from the thrash genre of like the 80s, I evolved into death metal into the early 90s, and then I was tape trading. So I was getting all of these underground black metal tapes, this new genre called black metal, because at the time around '93, death metal started to stagnate. Everybody sounded like Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation, so it really stagnated, and then that gave way to like the new wave of black metal to come in. And then we had all the controversy with Varg and the church burnings, the arson attacks, and the murders, etc. And it just went from there, really. It was a natural evolution for me from being a kid, listening to AC/DC, Iron Maiden, then a teenager, Metallica, Slayer, Exodus, and then, my late teens, early 20s, death metal, and then so on, black metal, and so on and so on.
Yeah. And do you remember what the first black metal tape you got was that made you go, "Oh crap, this is pretty cool."
Well, uh, first black metal, I mean, first stuff that I heard is the first wave, which would be like Venom, of course, Merciful Fate, Hellhammer, Celtic Frost. But I think it was the Cradle demo actually.
Hmm.
Total fucking darkness because I was tape trading and I had a crappy death metal band at the time called Monolith, and I was in contact correspondence with Cradle, and we swapped demo tapes etc. And then we played a few shows together and became friends. And then the next thing I know, I'm down there hanging out with them while they were recording an album that got shelved. And their drummer at the time, he wasn't feeling it, so they got rid of him. I think he quit or they fired him. I don't quite remember. And that's when I stepped up and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And within 2 days, I was living down there. Brought my drum kit down, and we were rehearsing for the Emperor tour.
So one thing I wanted to ask about is is the kind of mixes. Because whilst I was going through like some of the early stuff, like the first Cradle of album, someone in the comments who's gonna hate me for this, but was it Principle of Evil? Made Flesh was like the first album you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the drum sound on that is, but the drums are very, very high in the mix. And then if you compare that to like Dusk and Her Embrace, for example, the drums are kind of like in a much quieter,
yeah,
quieter in the mix, and it's a bit more kind of guitar and atmospheric, atmospheric in a way.
yeah.
What was the decision behind that? Because it was kind of cool having like that really punchy drum sound in the early Cradle material.
Well, the thing was with the Principle of Evil Made Flesh. We were kids. We'd never really been in a professional studio per se before. I mean, I was like 19. Then the keyboard player was, I think, 15, and he had to get permission to leave school to record. And we were just inexperienced. We didn't know what we were doing. It was a lot of trial and error, and it turned out the way it did. You know, yeah, I mean, we captured something special at the time. I mean, it sounds very dated now, if you ask me, and I hate my playing on it. It's cringeworthy, but for the time, I mean, there was nothing like it, and I think it was the right place at the right time. Because like nobody had ever heard anything like that before. And even in terms of black metal, it was like totally different to what the Scandinavians were doing because, we drew influences more from, like Venom and Merciful Fate and, like a lot of English themes, you know, like Byron, like literature, Byron and Shelley. We just captured something really special. And I think some of the naivety and innocence of not having studio experience kind of made it a little bit more special.
Mm.
And the next release, which was Vampire, is a little bit more polished.
Yeah, I would agree because I would say the quality of the drumming definitely improved from the first album to Vampire. Um,
Yeah,
a lot more purposeful.
I was practicing a lot, and also that's when the Death album, Individual Thought Patterns, dropped. So I got a lot of inspiration from that record, and Gene's playing on that really helped me forge a little bit more of my own style and where I wanted to go with my playing.
Mm.
And that's still a go-to album for me even today.
Awesome. Because there's one thing about your playing that I wanted to ask, and that's the I think it uh I think that it was the YouTuber 66 Seamus. He's a big fan of yours.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know, Lewis.
Yeah, and he was saying like the Nick Barker feel, and it's going back to the Maelstrom of Mephisto. So what exactly are you doing? Because is it a group of six that you're doing like that, or is it like groups of four in the fast rolls?
Is it? You mean the beginning, the drum intro at the beginning,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
well, it's a splash double kick accent over a tom fill. Yeah, so it starts with a splash accent, and then in with the fill, and then in with a blast.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
If I was on the drum kit, I could show you, but can't I can't explain it in like theory terms. I don't know. I'm self-taught, you see, so I don't know any of the technical terminology of what I do. So I'm totally self-taught.
All right, because it's it sounds like you've taken less.
No, this is why I've never done an instruction video because I don't know any of the technical terminology of what I do. I just play. I just feel.
Gotcha, gotcha. And have you thought about entering like the Instagram or YouTube space, sharing a bit more about your time in the bands and a bit more about like your gear and just like some drumming stuff? Have you thought about doing that before? Because I think personally it'll be really cool to just get a bit more like insight on that kind of thing.
Yeah, my wife is constantly on at me, about I should be more active on social media and I need to get an artist page and to be honest, I'm I'm a bit of a technophobe. You know, yeah, it's the social media thing. I'm still a bit of a newbie,
Mhm.
but there's some things I'm considering some things like my wife. She's suggested a few things which sound good, and you mentioned also the gear and stuff. So I think in the future I'll probably consider doing something.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And bringing it back to the Cradle years, like how was the experience for you? Starting in what would have been a semi kind of smallish band back in the day, and then you release Cruelty and Principles of Evil's Made Flesh, Dusk and Her Embrace. Having a band that was just kind of doing this. What was that experience like for you, and what were like some of the emotions that you were going through, and how you dealt with all of the ups and downs that come with band life, I guess.
Well, the thing with Cradle was, like I said, I was a tape trader, and there was this buzz going around the underground this band from the UK called Cradle of Filth, and everyone was talking about them. And when I finally got hold of the Total Fucking Darkness demo and I heard it, it blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. And I knew right then that this is going to be the next big thing. This band is going to be huge. And when I had the opportunity to join the band, I was just so focused. And because I was, it was my childhood dream to, make music, to tour the world and be a musician since I was in single digits. And I knew when I heard Cradle of Filth that it was special because there was nothing like it at the time. In 1993, no band sounded like this. Everyone sounded like Cannibal Corpse, and like Suffocation. And this new wave of black metal thing is like, yeah, this is going to be huge. And I was right. And, there was ups and downs. I mean, we signed a shitty contract, which meant we didn't get paid. Cacophonous was a new label, and rather than pay us the money that they legally owed us, they decided to use the money from the Cradle of Filth album to sign other bands and build the label. And we knew we were onto something because we recouped. We recouped on pre-sales. And so we were expecting, we should be getting some royalties then, within the next few months. And nothing came. Nothing came. We were all on welfare, like on the dole, like, yeah, living like peasants, basically. And just living for the music. We lived for it. We lived, breathed, ate, shit, slept, Cradle of Filth all the time, 24/7. And it was when Dusk was supposed to be the second album. Now, the original version, which was re-released some years ago now, because it was supposed to be the second album, I had the idea of like, we'll withhold the master tapes, and we'll give the master tapes to the label when they account to us for the principle of you made flesh. Well, of course, they got pissed. Who the fuck do you think you are? Blah blah blah. It's like, well, we just want what's legally ours. If you give us send us the statements for the first record, and we'll gladly hand over the master tapes. So we got into a legal battle with them, and that's how Vampire came around because that was part of the settlement. We keep the masters for Dusk as long as we give them an EP and we walk away free. So that's a little bit of how Vampire came around and why there's a re-recorded version of The Forest Whistles by Name on it, and also Nocturnal Supremacy, which was on a bonus track on Dusk and Her Embrace too. So with the master tapes for Dusk and Her Embrace, we went to Music for Nations, signed a great contract with them, and then it just took off.
Oh, that's brilliant. And speaking of Dusk and Her Embrace, what's your favorite song off that album?
You know what? I haven't listened to that record in years. There's a lot of good songs on it. I don't like the production and I don't like the mix.
Hmm.
It's very washy, and yeah, a lot of stuff got lost, especially in the drum recording. Um, I'd probably say "Funeral in Carpathia" is probably a favorite.
Yeah, I was just about to say that one's definitely my favorite as well. It's that journey in the song.
Yeah,
That journey in the song. He's got the riff. Do, da, da, do, da, 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 da. Then it all breaks down. Da, 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 da. No, yeah, it's just one of those songs that works. What would you say is like the most iconic moment for yourself during the Cradle years? It could be like drum performance or like an album that you did or just something that you just feel like, yes, I'm
uh,
so glad this was brilliant. Yeah.
there was a few moments actually. I mean, when we won the Kerrang Award, that was pretty special. For best new band. Um, Signing to Music for Nations, which was, as a kid, you know, they had Metallica and so many great bands. So being part of Music for Nations was something quite special. When we were invited to perform live in the MTV studios, that was another glory moment. The green room at the MTV studios was amazing. Like all the booze and food they laid on for us, and also they had a telephone which had an outside line, and we were calling all of our girlfriends in the US on their dime. um, what else? Um, I'd say when we did the BBC documentary, well, that was a farce, really. They always portray metalheads as like idiots whenever mainstream TV or media do anything.
Mm.
Um, there's quite a few moments, but Cradle as well. It was very, it was very volatile too. We were young, we were living our dream, but we didn't really know the industry, so we were getting fucked over big time. And also the main guy in Cradle of Filth wasn't as transparent as he should have been as well. And that caused a lot of fractures and a lot of splits, and so it was like all the time new members, and it kind of there was no how can I explain it? There was no it wasn't very harmonious at
Mm.
times, you know.
Yeah, yeah, because there's a bit of talk with Cradle right now. Obviously, I don't want to go too much into it.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, but it seems like, throughout the history there was like you said, like a fractiousness. There probably would have been a time, I guess, in the early years, 1993 to 1996 or 7, where you were still new and there was that sense of camaraderie.
Yes,
And
there was.
and going off what you're saying and how things have happened, it's kind of just done this, where
Yeah,
everything's a bit more kind of.
yeah. When we started out, I mean, we were all broke. We all had the same goal. And there was that sense of camaraderie. But as soon as money started coming in, and like vultures, like management, like hovering around, it just everything. You know, when management came in and they totally looked at Filth and said, "We're going to market him like he's going to be the new Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie. We're going to call him Danny Filth." And I knew right then where this was going. It's like, nah, it's all about marketing him, and the rest of the band, we're just expendable. But what management failed to recognize was that it was the musicians that wrote all the music, and things happen for a reason. I moved on to bigger, better things.
Hmm.
Um, I knew, I knew I was getting fucked over by Cradle of Filth. On the very first Dimmu Borgir tour I did, because I made so much money on my first Dimmu Borgir tour. Never made that much money in Cradle in all my life.
Right.
That's when I knew I was being fucked over royally.
Gotcha, gotcha. I guess that's a nice transition into the Dimmu Borgir years with
Yeah,
itself, because we discussed a little bit about like the writing process as well. But you did you also have to travel from the UK to Norway for rehearsals?
yeah.
Oh, bloody hell, that must have been a mission.
No, not really. It's just like taking a bus.
Okay.
It really is. It's like when you travel the world, you realize that it's quite a small place. And like everywhere is pretty accessible nowadays. And part of the terms of me joining Dimmu was, I was prepared to relocate. I was prepared to move to Norway or Sweden. And they said, no, you don't need to. As long as you can fly over when we need you, it'll work out. So I would fly over, stay over there for like maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time. We'd do press, photos, rehearse, write, and yeah. And I still had my life back in the UK.
That's brilliant. Cool. with the Dimmu Borgir eras, your first kind of like rehearsals with Dimmu Borgir, what were like your favorite songs to play?
Well, when I auditioned, um, we just we just played stuff from um the Triumph album.
Mm,
Yeah, Darkness. Yeah,
yeah.
the Darkness Triumph album. So we did like Spellbound by the Devil, In Death's Embrace, Morning Palace, Tormentor of Christian Souls, Master of Disharmony. So we just focused on them, and as soon as I started playing, I knew I got the gig because I could see the body language. They were all like, "Fuck yeah, he's not too shabby." So we'll have some of this, and yeah. So we played some songs, and then like, great, you're in the band if you want to commit. And then we went downtown and got hammered.
Awesome. And what about learning the material from the Spiritual Black Dimensions album? The reason why I asked that is because there's, I think it's on the DVD you guys did, where
Yeah.
there's a performance of you guys doing the insight and the catharsis.
Yes.
Yeah, how was it learning all of that kind of material?
Well, after my initial visit to Norway and my audition, I went back home, and that was the next thing I had to learn because we had a tour coming up with Dark Funeral, 7 weeks in Europe. So I went back to the UK, and I literally spent every single waking moment listening to the disc, making notes, cheat sheets, you know, blast riff for four, that kind of thing. I make my own idiot notes, and yeah, I just learned it by ear and wrote down certain things that I needed for each song, and then went back to Norway, rehearsed for the tour, and then yeah, I think we had like three rehearsals before the tour.
Sick. And what was the most challenging song?
Um, Most challenging song, probably the Blazing Monolith of Defiance.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because there's a lot of footwork on that.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, I like a challenge. So
So how did the writing differ from Puritanical to Death Cult Armageddon?
um, they Shagrath had more demos ready for the Death Cult. A lot of the Death Cult Armageddon album was presented in demo form, and it just naturally evolved. You know, um, I had some ideas. I added my 2 cents here and there on some of the arrangements, and I'm not precious. Like I say, can we try it this way? If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll move on. You know, I'm not like, oh, it has to be this way because it's my idea. So I'm not that type of guy.
Mm.
I want what's best for the song, really, for the music. But yeah, we were more prepared. See, with Puritanical, we had some lineup issues, and that kind of stifled things a little bit. With Death Cult, yeah, we were way more prepared.
Because one of my favorite moments on that is the beginning of For the World to Dictate Our Death. Talk to me about the ideas behind that massive drum fills at the beginning of the song.
I just felt like the song needed like it needed more impact at the beginning. So we were messing around, noodling, and I came up with the idea, and it seemed to work really well, and the guys liked it.
Cool. And is it Blood Hunger Doctrine, the song after that, where it's kind of slow, with the one that starts off slow, the da na da da na na. Are you crashing on the ride in the beginning? That,
Yeah,
okay, that's not something that you do, is it? Crashing on the
no,
ride.
no, but sometimes you try these ideas and they work. Um, Again, a lot of times it's trial and error, and yeah, it's just one of those things that works.
Talking about your drum gear, because I believe you're a long time Paiste cymbal
Yes.
user. Yeah. What got you into them and why those specifically, just out of interest?
Well, all the drummers that I liked from the '80s growing up, they all played Posty, Nico McBrain, Clive Burr, Dave Lombardo, Neil Peart. Sorry, not Neil Peart. Stuart Copeland. Um, yeah, so I've always liked their cymbals.
What about like pedals and things? What were you using?
For years, years started out. I had a pair of DW 5000s in the early '90s, which were standard back then for most extreme drummers. And then we did a tour in Europe with Malevolent Creation and their drummer Dave Cole Ross at the time is killer drummer, really good friend. He's played in like Suffocation, Malevolent Creation, excellent, badass drummer. And he was playing these pedals called Axis that I'd never seen before in my life. They look like they just come from fucking outer space. I'd never seen pedals like it. And it was Dave Pulross that introduced me to Axis pedals. And then I got a pair for myself, and then I played Axis for many years, and then I switched to the Polish company that everyone's playing now, George Kopyto.
Mm.
But I was one of the very first endorsees for George Kopyto. So they've used me as a bit of a spokesperson.
No, that's cool. And how did swapping pedals from because the if I okay if I remember correctly, the DWs are a chain drive, and
Yes,
most Axis pedals are direct drives. And I've heard
yes.
like over the years, like getting used to the direct drives has been a nightmare for some people, and for some people it's so they can't get used to it to the point where they just never use them. So was it like that kind of learning curve when using the direct drives?
It was there was a little bit. It took a little bit of getting used to because there's so many different things with the Axis pedals that you can adjust and tweak. So I had to find my soft spot, my sweet spot, which took about a year. Um, I actually prefer the direct drives because they're more solid. With the chain drives, you get like play on the foot plate because of the links in the chain, and I don't like that. I like the solidness of the direct drives.
Mm. And was that one of the reasons why? Because in the early Cradle stuff, when you're doing the blast beats, like in a traditional blast, it's like like that, and the kicks, and then at the beginning, it's like so it's like a kick every beat. So was it like when you switched to the Axis pedals where you decided to like do the more traditional blast with like the left foot as well because it was easier, or was it just like a technique or a stylistic thing? Like,
The cradle blast, which I hate, um, I had to play it like that because the guitarist couldn't keep time.
oh, I see. Okay.
So I had to just do the one, just like so it's like a metronome for them, you know. And I fucking hated it because it makes me look cheap. But whenever I tried doing the 2 foot, like the bomb blast,
Mm.
they no, the timing was they just wander. So I decided just to do the one, just to keep it together. And I hate it. I fucking hate it. Even today, I'm ashamed. You know,
Ah,
yeah,
gotcha. See, like I'm definitely more partial to the regular style of blast beat, but given the circumstances of the thing and the results that came from it, I think it was a okay trade in the grand scheme of things, I guess. But then of course, like if you're the artist and you listen back to it and you because I get the same thing sometimes listening back to your old stuff and it's just like, damn it, I wish I could change this or yeah.
yeah. I mean, some people said, it makes Cradle more unique, you know, and it makes them stand out. It gives them a little bit of originality. But yeah, it was just my way of, look, the 2 foot thing isn't working because I wasn't using triggers then either, and so the 2 foot thing wasn't working. So I had to switch to the one just to keep everyone together and tight. and locked in with me. It's you either like it or you don't.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, you just reminded me of something else I wanted to talk to you about, which is triggers, and how did they affect your playing?
they okay. So the myth that triggers are cheating. Let me just tell the world now, it's not cheating to use triggers at all. All the triggers do is they fire a certain sound when the beta strikes the head, and it sends an electrical pulse to the brain, which is then assigned to a particular sound.
Hmm.
All it does. So it just mimics what you play. So if you play like shit, it's gonna sound like shit, because it just replicates what you play. So using triggers actually made me step up. Like it made me realize, whoa, you can hear the imperfections more. So you learn more foot control, and it helps with stamina. And yeah, it just it exposes the bad playing, and if you're serious, then you'll step up, and you just perfect it. But yeah, they definitely helped, and they tightened the band up too. It depends on the sound you use too, as well. We kind of fucked up on Cruelty and the Beast with the original mix, because the guy that we used was totally out of his depth, and we used this. We were in UB40 studio actually in Birmingham, and the guy that we used, this German guy, he had no clue. He was way in over his head, and that's how the album turned out the way it did. Hence the remix some
Hmm.
years later.
Gotcha. Yeah, and did you ever use click tracks live?
Yes, I did with Dimmu Borgir.
I see. Gotcha. Okay, cool. And was that your decision or their
It
decision?
was a unified decision, really.
Yeah. And do you feel that helped with the overall product? And the only reason why I asked this is because I've had conversations with people about using click tracks live, and because what my band does and what I've done with bands for the last while is the drummer uses the click track and we just follow the drummer. Whereas
Yeah.
everyone having individual click tracks. Do you find having a click track is an overall benefit for a band?
Um, yes and no. It makes the band sound tighter. Plus, if you've got backing tracks and stuff and sound effects and all that jazz, it just adds a bit more production value. But at the same time, it holds you back. Live, your adrenaline's pumping, so you play the songs a little bit faster, maybe. But the click is always there, reining you in.
Hmm.
So it depends. I can take it or leave it.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. And there's some bands that just wouldn't. Well, there's some bands that need a click.
Yeah.
For example, if it's something that's a bit more like death metal and technically or rhythmically focused. The Goroth session you did, how did, first of all, how did that come about? And what was the whole process with that? How was it learning the songs? Did you find it difficult? Yeah, yeah, well, I just want to hear the story.
How the Gorgoroth thing came around is uh, Tom Visner's King of
Mm.
Hell. He called me up and he, asked if I'd be willing to play session drums for Gorgoroth on a tour, on a European tour. And I had nothing else happening, so I said, yeah, sure. And then he sent me the set list. I knew some of it, and yeah, it was fairly easy, really. I had to just learn the Frost's drum parts, and Frost is a great drummer and good guy too. And so it was fun playing his rhythms. He's got some really really cool ideas that I like, quite militant.
I was just about to bring up the Carving a Giant song,
Yeah, yeah, I
Is that
love
what
that
you
drum beat.
Sorry?
I love that drum beat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. No, I was just about to say, because as soon as you said Militant and Goroth, I was like, yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah,
I think Amajerum is my favorite Gorgoroth album as well.
it's a great album. Yeah, I love playing the songs off that. Prosperity and Beauty, Wound Upon Wound. Carving a Giant, obviously.
Another question I wanted to ask you is how would you differentiate UK black metal to Norwegian black metal?
I mean, Norwegian black metal, obviously, it's more distinctive, but there's a lot more bands. Uh, there's a lot more. There's a lot of generic stuff out there. I think the UK bands kind of give it a twist. You know, they put their own stamp on it. Um, but I mean, the Norwegian scene. I mean, it's been going strong now for over like 30 years. And it's yeah, every year at Inferno Festival they have people from all over the world travel to Norway for this festival because they do like what they call the black metal tour, where you can see Euronymous' apartment where he was murdered. His resting place. The old Helvete record store. With a basement. Everyone gets the picture taken with the black metal in the basement. I like both. They're very different, but yeah, I like them both. Not all of it,
Yeah.
but the good stuff. What's good is good.
Mm. And what's some standout bands for you?
Mayhem,
Mm.
Mayhem Immortal, Emperor in the Nightside Eclipse. Dissection, Dark Funeral, Marduk. Yeah. I mean, even the Swedish scene differs from the Norwegian scene. You can tell the difference. Yeah, but it's great, and I've got a lot of friends over there. So it was weird because when I was in Cradle Filth and Cradle was all blowing up, so many Norwegian bands got jealous and pissed and started talking shit. And then when you actually meet these people, they turn out to be actually nice guys. I was quite defensive when I first went to Norway. I was expecting, somebody's going to want to fucking, try it, and I'm either going to get my ass kicked or I'm going to kick someone's ass. And there was nothing like that. Everyone welcomed me with open arms, really. I was quite surprised.
That's good to hear because there was a fair bit of cradle bashing. Even when I was getting into the scene as well, there's a lot of bashing on that, and it kind of became like a cool thing to hate. Like it became cool to like hate on bands, and I think about that now, and I'm just thinking like, come on, that's just a very very pathetic way of thinking about things. Because just you don't have to shit on something just because you don't like it.
Absolutely.
And then I think over time, because when you're first getting into music, and especially being a teenager, because during that time you're so passionate about everything, and you're kind of like narrow-minded, and everything's all over the place. So sometimes it feels like your word is absolute, and then over time people mellow out, they chill out, and they realize a lot more about what's important and what actually matters in music, and that's the art and the enjoyment of just listening to music and just having fun with it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. People mature and evolve and grow up. And you taste in music. Well, everything changes as
Mm.
you grow up as a person.
No, of course. And what are you listening to now these days, music-wise?
I don't really listen to much. I'm so out of touch with metal. I couldn't tell you what's new and what's great. I tend to listen to. It's funny because I hated them as a teenager, but I really love The Cure.
Hmm.
So listen to a lot of The Cure, Depeche Mode. Um, Slayer is a regular in the household. But me and my wife like listening to classic rock. So we listen to a lot of like Foreigner and stuff like that. And every now and then I like to bust out some Mayhem or Immortal, just to keep the neighbors in check.
Oh yeah. No, of course. And what's your favorite Mayhem album out of interest?
Well, De Mysterious, obviously. Um, But I quite like Chimera.
Mm.
Um, the last one was really good too. I like each album they've done. You know,
Cool.
they put their own stamp on it each time, and I love it. Immortal too. I love Immortal.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say like probably my favorite Immortal album is At the Heart of Winter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That and Sons of Northern Darkness for me, and Pure Holocaust.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
100%. 100%. Because for me, with At the Heart of Winter, that's when Hawk on drums.
yes,
And then that's when I think Immortal was always a good band, but I think that's when they became a great band because I think they just perfected that kind of that sound of the Winterscape and all the riffs and the grooves.
I agree too. And it's got that riff there. That riff is just the shit right there.
That's such a great riff, and every riff on Withstand the Fall of Time is brilliant, and then even the ending riff as well, just so cool.
Play the scenes on the hi-hats too. It's great.
Old Man's Child, because in the album that you're on is my favorite Old Man's Child album, the In Defiance of Existence album, and that was in terms of like the timeline, was that recorded just after Death Cult? Or no, or before Death Cult, because it was released in 2003, so it must have been before Death Cult.
Yes. No, it was recorded just before Death Cult.
Mm.
I remember we was on a US tour, and then we came home, and I recorded the Old Man's Child, and then we started working on Death Cult. The Old Man's Child album came together really quick.
Was that all of the material presented already by Gauda and just writing drum parts to it, or was there more kind of like jam sessions and
No, he gave me finished demos with like rough drums, like certain patterns. He was like, I want the blast there, and so he was adamant that he wanted certain bits in certain places, but he just gave me the demos and said, just barkerize it, make it your own.
I like that Barkerize it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I tend to do that. Yeah, if I'm learning somebody else's songs, and if there's a few bits that I'm not quite sure of, fuck it, I'll just barkerize it.
Yeah. What would you say is like the most Barkerized section of like because out of all the sessions and the live shows that you've done, what would you say is like the most like standout Barkerized moments
I
with
don't know because when I play other people's music, I try to keep the drums, the patterns integral to the song. Probably the Spiritual Black Dimensions material because that had Kenneth, the old uh, Dimmu drummer on, and yeah, I just made it my own really. It kind of like gave me a blank canvas. But what I played, I did keep it. There's certain sections, you have to keep it integral in places, otherwise it doesn't sound like the song. But I think I just added a little bit more flair to it. That's all.
it's definitely that there's a lot more of your kind of playing style towards the end of Insight and the Catharsis. A lot more
Yeah,
cymbal work and a lot more kind of your kind of like tom fills. So
yeah.
I don't know the technical bits as well, but it's like yeah, yeah, I can totally hear that in your playing. And how did you end up joining Brujeria? Because aren't they based in like South America?
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So what happened is 1998, December 1998. I was already considering quitting Cradle at this time. I wasn't very happy. We did a European tour with Napalm Death. Great friends, known Napalm Death for 30 years, you know. And we did a tour, and I rode on their bus for the whole tour. And I expressed to Shane, the bass player, that I'm thinking of quitting Cradle. I'm not happy, and he was the one that actually tried persuading me not to. He's like, "Look, it's a good gig. It's like, just ride it out. But I'd had enough. I knew I was getting fucked over, and there was serious lack of transparency when it came to money. And at that time, we were selling out every venue, and doing great on merchandise, etc., etc. And the numbers just weren't adding up. And so when I asked to see the accounts, and it was met with reluctance, and I was made to feel like I'm the troublemaker. I was like, nah, this is not for me. And so Shane told me that he was going to Los Angeles for New Year, and he was going to record the new Brujeria album. And if I'd like to come along just for fun, a bit of a vacation, clear my head, so to speak. So we got to Los Angeles and met the guys. I already knew Dino from Fear Factory, and I met all the other guys, and they just said, hey, you got any drum beats? So on the spot, I got a couple of drum patterns that I was saving for Cradle, but that didn't matter anymore because I was out. And that's when I co-wrote 3 songs with Dino on the Brujerismo album. And the guys were like, "You're in the band, you're in the band." So it went from there really. And I've been in Brujeria for a good 25 years now, on and off. And it's just a shame that the lead singer Juan Brujo passed away last year, along with his cousin, who was also our MC. They both passed away. So the band's still got continuing in their honor, but obviously I'm not playing the drums because I'm sick.
Hmm.
And yeah, but I'm hoping to, as soon as I've got a new kidney, I'm going to be back in the saddle with Brujeria and doing some other things as well. And in the meantime, I'm compiling a bunch of notes. So I'm going to write my autobiography. I'm decided. Well, my wife pushed me as well. Um, you know, it's the life. It's a good life story. This sort of working class kid from some shitty town in England, went on to become an international, you know, um, face in the music scene, and all the bands that I've played in as well. Not just the black metal bands. I mean, all the US bands like Testament, Exodus, Nuclear Assault, Possessed. These are all bands that asked me to play for them at some point or another. So there's plus the Brujeria years too. I mean, we were in Mexico during the cartel wars. We got caught up in city curfews, and we heard machine. Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be a good book.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely get a copy, and
Yeah,
if there's gonna be an audiobook as well.
that's what I'm going to work on. But I need to find a ghostwriter.
Mm.
I'm taking notes now, but I need a ghostwriter really that can just sit down and talk to me, and we can get it all together.
I think it's going to be a really special thing when that comes out because I don't think there's many. I don't think there's many, if any, books for people who have written about their life in the extreme metal scene. So I think it's going to be quite an exciting thing when that does come out, and the stories I think are going to be fascinating to listen and read upon, and very
So
enlightening for a lot of people.
yeah, I hope so. And it's going to shed a lot of light on some stuff that people don't know.
Your time in the industry as well, because you are also a tour manager.
Yes.
Yeah, and was that done? So it sounds a bit rude if I ask, but was it basically done in spite of all the people who have like just kind of like screwed you over, and you'll just be like, nope, I'm going to show you how things are done properly? Was it that kind of thing, or was it more the case of you just wanted to give it a go?
Well, I've always been interested in the industry. I've always wanted to know, how things work, logistics and everything. So I always used to ask questions, and when you've got a dodgy manager, too many questions, oh, troublemaker, troublemaker. But I've always been interested in how the industry works, and um, it was at a time in my life when I wasn't really doing much in terms of drumming, and my gigs, it kind of stagnated a little bit, and it's like I can't get a 9 to 5 job because I'm just not that type of person. So I had to look at like, well, what can I do? Well, I can still work on the road. I'll just be a tour manager. So instead of playing, I'm just going to be organising, and I absolutely loved it. It's a very thankless job. Everybody blames the tour manager. Everything's the tour manager's fault. The ice isn't cold enough. Blame the fucking tour manager. Everything. But I like it because it's you basically you're in control. It's you that gets everyone from point A to point B. You're the one that makes sure everyone gets home safe. You're the guy that makes sure doors open on time, bands are on stage on time. We get paid, yada yada. So I really enjoyed it, but it's a very hard and thankless job.
Because you're effectively managing what 20 plus people, and then having to deal with all the logistics and all the and all the gear, and then what if this gear goes missing, or if the guitarist breaks something, is the tech going to be able to sort something? That's a it's a huge job that I don't think a lot of people get enough credit for, if I'm
It
really
is.
honest.
It's a huge job. I mean, basically, you're basically babysitting, a bunch of guys, a bunch of adults, But it's a lot of fun. I mean, it was the best of times and the worst of times. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I've got a lot of life experience from my time as a tour manager. So, I'd like to do it again sometime.
Mm. And where does this desire stem from to I mean not in like a music sense, but just to like travel and go to places and just be kind of like out in the world? Where did that stem from, do you think?
I don't really know, but I've always loved traveling, and I always like this is the longest I've ever been not on the road. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've got fucking cabin fever. It's my life now is just evolves around dialysis, come home, rest. The next day, dialysis, come home, rest. And it's just Groundhog Day. Um, at least when you're on tour, you're in a different place each day, different surroundings. You meet different people. And different challenges. Each day comes with a set of new challenges. And right now, I'm just, unfortunately, I'm just stuck where I am until I can get better.
Mm. For sure, yeah, and I guess one word that comes to mind is like it is variety, and enjoying the variety and everything that's out there, and but even so, like the amount of like places and things that you must have seen are just well are book worthy.
Oh, this is it. This is why I'm
Yeah,
going to write my book.
yeah. I think it's going to be a really exciting thing when it comes out, and I think a lot of people will really enjoy it. Hearing it from yourself as well.
I don't want it to be another rock and roll kiss and tell kind of
Yeah.
generic thing. But there will be elements of that in there, obviously, because it comes with the territory,
Mm.
you know. But I want it to be more about, my life, where I came from, how I came up,
Yeah.
and, you know, how the lifestyle contributed to my renal failure and my subsequent recovery. So the recovery and me being back at it, that's going to be the end of the book.
Mm. And I think that's going to be so cool. After speaking to well, I say a lot, but a few people that I've grown up listening to, I think it's now more exciting to, of course, talk to them about the music, but find out more about who they are as people and what they're really about outside of the music. And I find that is so much more enlightening in a way. when speaking to this people, because it must have been a similar thing when you were doing like the Testament sessions, and well, I think you were in Testament, but playing in all of these kind of bands, it must have been like very, very similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And it kind of makes you feel kind of like thankful and humbled in a way, but also at the same time, it's just like a whole bunch of youthful energy has like arisen, like this fire inside you. It's like, damn, I get to do this now. Let's go, kind of thing. And it just,
to be honest, it was a little bit surreal when I joined Testament because same with Exodus and stuff. These are bands that I had posters of them on my wall as a teenager. And now I'm in the Bay Area. And hanging out with them and rehearsing to go on tour, rehearsing to tour Australia. Stuff like that. So it's quite surreal. But it was fun, definitely.
like we're talking like back in like your teen years when you're first listening to this music, where you're like working out songs by ear and trying to play along to like the
Yeah,
CDs and everything. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I didn't have CDs. I had vinyl.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I used to play along. So I'm self-taught. I don't know any of the terminology. The first drum beat I learned to play was Highway to Hell.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just I had the 7 inch. So I put it on the turntable with the big Mickey Mouse 70s headphones, and I just played along to it. And then the next beat I learned was "Gimme All Your Lovin' by ZZ Top because it had the dun 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 dun. It just had the little snare thing in. That was the second beat. And then 6 months later, I was playing along to Master of Puppets. Is I put the records on headphones and I'd just, you know, play along.
Cool. And then what was that one song that gave you grief for ages, and then when you finally got it, it felt like euphoria?
Um, that would be something newer. Um, Children of the Underworld by Deicide.
What is the advice that you have for bands and musicians?
Lawyer up. First and foremost, lawyer up. Don't sign anything until you've had a lawyer look at it. Learn the industry. Learn the ins and outs of the industry because that's where we all faltered when we were kids, and we were taken advantage of. There's plenty of people out there, vultures that they prey on young, naive musicians that you know everyone's dangled the same carrot. Like, oh, well, we'll put you in the studio, we'll get you on tour. You'll be on MTV, all that shit, and you kind of get blindsided by all that. And yeah, you really need to know what you're signing and what the industry's about. So I would say learn about the industry and lawyer up.
In your entire music careers thus far, what's been what's been your happiest memory?
Oh shit, there's so many. There's so many. Um, oh, like the the first open air festival we played, 120,000 people, Dynamo, 1997 with Marilyn Manson and Korn, supporting Metallica in Chile. Um, my time in Dimmu was very special. My time in Brujeria also, which was very special. It's been an amazing ride. It's just right now I'm taking a break because I've got to get my health back. As soon as I get a new kidney and I can travel and tour again, I'm going to come out all guns blazing.
Awesome, awesome. I wish for that to happen. And I guess on final thoughts, you've got a GoFundMe page. Yeah, do you want to just share a bit more details about that so then everyone in the comments can know where to turn to and what it's about? And yeah,
Yeah, basically, a friend, a very good friend of mine, she set up um, this GoFundMe thing to help me out because obviously touring that's my main source of income. and I cannot tour while I'm undergoing dialysis treatment 3 times a week. Um, and sometimes the fatigue just absolutely wipes me out. Sometimes I can't even get out of bed. So because I have no revenue stream anymore, I'm kind of in a bit of a pinch, and so my friend set up the page for any fans out there that want to help me out while I'm, you know, trying to get better, get my health back on track. And yeah, so that's it really.